You found your way to the Winning Tactics podcast with host Adam Sinkus. Adam discusses winning tactics with small business owners and entrepreneurs, uncovering processes and introducing the tools and solutions for enhancing the bottom line. Thanks again for finding your way to the Winning Tactics podcast, and now your host, Adam Sinkus.
All right. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome back to another wonderful episode of the Winning Tactics podcast. Before we jump into today's show, get a few of those administrative things out of the way. Like to first of all, thank our affiliate partner, Cowork Hub Virtual, giving consultants, coaches, freelancers, solopreneurs, and more a sense of place in a remote work world. Really awesome space. It totally is a replacement for Zoom. It feels like an office. It is absolutely phenomenal. I strongly encourage you to check out their site, coworkhubvirtual.com, and get your office set up today. It is like $180 for the year to get your office set up, and it is cool. Also, we got some amazing guests lined up for the next, month and a half, man. I've been on a tear here to get the first part of the year set up. But we are always looking for more guests. So if you are interested in being a guest on the show and can talk about small business, definitely check us out on thewinningtactics.com. There is a link on there where you can go apply to be on the show. And without further ado, I want to welcome my guest this week. We got Justin Goldston, and he's pretty awesome, dude. We're going to be talking about sustainability in business. I'm excited to have you on, Justin. Thank you so much for being on the show. Why don't you go ahead and get started with telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Thank you for having me. I was digging the intro music. I hope the outro is the same thing. I'm liking that one. So I'm Justin Goldston. I am a professor of project and supply chain management at Penn State University. My research is primarily centered around supply chain management, sustainability, and emerging technologies. I think that the most important piece is that in all that I do, I blend those three because I think that all those three are interconnected. I think that given my experience within the manufacturing and distribution industry, I've seen the good, bad, and dysfunctional in terms of operations management, and I think that it's time to make a change. And I think that COVID demonstrated that to a lot of people. Uh, I've also created corporate social responsibility courses for institutions such as Georgetown and Davenport University. And whenever I created those classes, I came to the realization that the term corporate social responsibility let students know or have students get to the point where they think that corporate social responsibility is only the responsibility of these large billion-dollar organizations, right? So it's been my mission the last couple of months to take the corporate out of corporate social responsibility and show everyone that it's everyone's responsibility in order to meet a sustainable future.
Awesome, man. Well, we are so glad to have you on the show. I think sustainability is something in really social, you talk about corporate social responsibility, is something that is so important for small businesses these days. It's something that's often overlooked, right? Because small business owners are so engaged in the business itself. That oftentimes, they get done and it's like they spent all their energy on doing the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not thinking about how do we make this thing last and grow and build in a way that that is going to make it, really something that people are going to want to be involved with for the long term.
So one of the first things I do is, and this is in the classroom, this is in the boardroom, this is at conferences that I speak at, I always tell people to go on to Google and type in UN SDGs or UN Sustainable Development Goals. And there's 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And I say that look at all those goals and pick out your top two. And think to yourself as to why those are your top two. Okay. Now, using that same exact approach, go to the leaders of your organization and ask them their top two. With that, then go to every single employee within your organization and ask them their top two. And in doing that, you're going to understand what's important to you, what's important to your partners, as well as what's important to your employees within your organization. So I found that if small and medium businesses as a whole focus on those top two in which their employees made a consensus on, that's whenever you're going to get buy-in, right? And I always say that the higher education system in the business schools are broken in that we teach future leaders short-term profitability, right? So I
Yep.
think that's one of the reasons why we are somewhat struggling with sustainability and with implementing sustainability in small and medium businesses because it's a long term. I mean, it's a long term buy-in. It's a marathon. It's a marathon. There's no end to it. There is no end to it. And given that organizations are evaluated annually, given that leaders or evaluated quarterly and annually and things like that, I think that's why there's not that much focus on sustainability, when it's the primary focus is on profitability. But the thing is, sustainability can lead to a competitive advantage. So one thing that I always tell people is go on to YouTube and type in Alex Edmonds TEDx. So Alex Edmonds is a professor at the London Business School, and he did a longitudinal study as to does social responsibility positively impact the bottom line, or is it a distractor to the bottom line? And he found that the top 100 companies to work for beat their competitors within their respective industries year over year. So, I mean, that's proven research, and that's why it's one of my favorite TEDx talks.
Absolutely love that. I will totally have to go check that out tonight if I don't get lost in Clubhouse and other
You
social
will.
media.
You ain't leaving. You're not leaving Clubhouse tonight.
But I want to take a step back because I think some of our listeners may not totally understand what you mean by social responsibility. So just in basic terms, what does social responsibility mean from a business perspective?
Simple answer: take the money out of it and be human. That's that simple.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, you're right, and it's so interesting how business education is so focused on driving profits. I've taken a couple of project management classes, a couple of business leadership classes, and everything boils down to how are you setting processes to be more profitable. And while that's important,
Mm-hmm.
when I find when developing culture within a company, when you focus so much on process, it becomes this sort of speak assembly line feeling, right? And instead of people, you have objects that are just traveling down an assembly line, and you've got person A puts on bolt A, person B puts on bolt B, and it becomes so impersonal that people become detracted from actually completing the work itself. And I think that's really interesting. And I think the other thing that's interesting that I've been reading a lot about is how the millennial and Gen Z are changing the script in what is acceptable in the workplace. What are your thoughts on that?
That is one of the main things that I explain to leaders. I say that there's a power shift coming right now, because you have the a large number of individuals within the workforce, a large percentage of individuals in the workforce that are reaching retirement age, right? And the value, the capital is moving toward the millennials, and the millennials are doing their research before they invest in companies, right? And also before they purchase from these companies. So that's where the industry is going. I mean, I would say, survey after survey. I mean, within the last 2 or 3 years, there's been a number of consumer surveys in terms of, would you buy from a company that practices sustainability? Although you would purchase, it would come at a higher price, and like 80% of consumers say yes. But again, I would say that the 20-ish% said no because they don't understand what sustainability is,
Yeah.
right? They don't understand the positive impacts of sustainability. So yes, there's going to be a shift, and the more I speak with people, the more I'm seeing that shift. But within the business, within small and medium businesses, organizations say, well, yeah, I want to be sustainable, but I don't know where to start. And another thing I want to say is when you say sustainability, people just think environmental,
Hmm.
right? It's also the social aspects. Bringing in more minorities, bringing in more women in leadership positions. In encouraging that shared leadership method. Bring in those young minds so you can innovate within an organization. That's sustainability, right? And I speak with a lot of people on that. I just had a discussion with the individual other night in the clubhouse where where she said, I don't know much about sustainability. I said, wait a minute. I said, you just spoke 10 minutes about getting women in leadership within the apparel industry. I said, you just talked about sustainability. I didn't see it that way. I said, that's the problem. A lot of people don't see it that way. And the thing is, for all the viewers, for everyone that's reading this recording, ask yourself, what are you passionate about? It's like taking the business out of it. You as a person, what are you passionate about? And I can guarantee you there's one of those sustainable development goals that fall into that passion. And that's why everyone needs to do this so that all 17 of those sustainability development goals can be addressed. So that's one thing that I work with a lot of people on, and especially small and medium businesses.
I absolutely love that, right? Because small and medium businesses tend to be like really, leadership tends to be really in the trenches with things, with the daily operation of their business, and so it's hard, I think, sometimes to separate yourself because you're so focused on we got to get the work done in the trenches so that we can remain profitable, so we can pay all our bills this month, so we can continue to operate next month. And if you can shift your mindset to how can I approach this from a human first, from a people first perspective, it can really change your outlook on things. I mean, we all got bills to pay, and totally respect, totally respect that we all have bills to pay. But, the reality is when you have engaged employees, you have engaged customers then.
Exactly, and that's again, that's why I love that TED talk, because that's what he talks about. That's what Alex Evans talks about, and especially in small and medium businesses. If you treat your people well, they will have no problem with going an extra mile for you, no problem at all, and won't even ask for additional money or overtime. If you treat them well, they'll have no problem, right? And when you create that sustainable, focused environment, people say, "Oh, my employees are." No, they're not. If they love the environment they work in, they'll look past salary, right? And
Yep.
because they look past salary, now they're making you more money. Now you can pay them more money. You see how that works? You see how that
Yep.
works? I'm
I
not
love
focused on,
it.
I'm not focused on profitability, but I'm making more money. How'd that happen?
I absolutely love it. I have said that for a long time, right? One of the challenges I've had a couple of different people in the recruiting world on the show to talk about this, and one of the challenges that small businesses often face, in comparison to especially corporate the large corporations, is how can I pay my people competitively? And the answer is you can't. You can't pay as competitive as a company that has, a bank account with $150 million sitting in it. Right.
Right.
But the reality is there's a lot of other pieces that you can draw employees in with to win in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And really build something that offers, I think, a lot more than a lot of corporations do in the long run. No, you're not going to be. You're typically not going to advance to be the next CEO of a $1 billion business in a small business. That's unrealistic. But the reality is you could become an operations manager, director of operations, and gain a good amount of experience as a business grows. And that's where creating that environment that says that we care about our people and we want to see our people succeed, starts to change that script a little bit.
Right. And another thing I like to point out is that there was a study that just came out, I think like a couple days ago, where they just published the countries that did the best during the pandemic. I think the top 6 were led by women. And then I did my additional research, right? Oh wait, there's more. I did additional research, and I would say it was like 4 or 5 out of those 6 were in the top 10 on sustainability.
Yeah. It's amazing, right? I think that opens a totally different conversation about gender roles and how gender roles apply in business, and it's important that we have a multitude of this, and it's important that we break the barriers of this. But so many, I talk to so many young leaders that are men that have this fallacy like, oh, I'm a leader now, I need to be a boss, I need to be in charge, I need to be powerful. And and when I talk to women in the same arena, in that same space, it's I need to connect with my people, I need to make sure that they have what they need. It's the nature, or the nurture mentality versus the dominance mentality.
I would say the top 3 managers that I've had, they were all women, right? Never mind. I'm not, somebody might be watching when I say I can't think of a good male leader. Never mind. I'll leave it at my top 3. My top 3 leaders were women. Okay.
What's disappointing about that in my mind is that there's such an opportunity for men to shift the dynamic, right? Because it's a mindset and it's a choice. And once they shift that mentality, everything can change for them. At the core of it, businesses need to have that nurture mentality. I need to nurture my employees. I need to nurture my products. I need to nurture my customers. And and that, in my mind, is a big part of sustainability. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with that. And as you were talking through it, I think I nurture my students, but I'm like tough on my students. But I think that's nurturing, right? So
Yeah.
I had a project portfolio management class, and these students were great, but they were dragging a little bit on the project. And I said, everybody gets a 0. I said, we're done. So then the next week I apologized, but I said, look, I said, I am tough on you here in this classroom because if you'd have pulled that in the industry, all 4 of y'all would have been gone. Right?
Yeah.
I said, I am hard on you here so you don't make the mistakes out there. So that's my definition of nurture within higher education. But you know what? I mean, those students appreciate that, because I am purposely tough on them. But then at the end of that semester, I say I was tough on you for a reason. It's just one, to see how you would react, and two, to let you know that it's not sweet out in the industry.
Mhm.
Especially in the supply chain industry, where you're going into, manufacturing environments and things like that. I'm giving you a taste. I'm giving you a taste of the real world. So, but I mean, some people might say that's wrong, but I mean, I'm getting results from it.
You know, I love that, because it really speaks to what the individualness of that statement is, right? So you nurture your students in a tough love sort of way, and it's not, and that's okay, right? That's what nurture. That's how you can best provide for them in that moment, in that time, right? And so that creates an environment that's sustainable for them,
Right.
and and it's probably, in the long run, it's probably going to help them out, in the long term, when they get out into the world as well. Let's shift gears just a little bit, because we've talked a lot about the social part of sustainability. But there's really two other pieces. There's the environmental, which is, I think a lot of people are pretty well informed on what environmental sustainability is. It's the green, and making sure we're using as much clean energy efficiency, not dumping chemicals out our back door because we can, type things. But there's also financial sustainability is another big piece of sustainability in business. And what are your thoughts on how businesses can be more educated on the financial sustainability of their business?
So there's been a shift within the financial sector itself. So there's an ESG discussion that's been coming up often within the industry, where investors are looking for what the organization's sustainable practices are. I was actually on a panel discussion with a vice president of a VC firm, and he said that sustainability is a part of our risk assessment. And he said, if the company is not doing anything from a sustainability perspective, they're high risk to us. He said, we don't care about what's on the paper. We don't care about what's on your roadmap. You have to be doing it now. You know, why is it on the roadmap? You should have been doing what's on your roadmap. You should have been doing it. He said, you wrote that on your roadmap because we came in here, because we were coming in, and you wanted to see it. So from an investing perspective, and we talked about the millennials and Gen Zs, right? So that's one aspect, and I mean, even within, even on Wall Street, they're talking about it. There's metrics out there in terms of sustainability, from an investing perspective. So, but also from a philanthropic aspect, one thing I always say is, how are you giving back to the people who actually made you successful? How are you giving back to the people who paved the way for this success that you're currently in now, right?
Yep.
So that's the important piece, because that's how you're going to create those lifelong customers. I have some stories. I don't want to call. I'm not gonna call anybody out. I'm not gonna do that to them. But there's some very 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 large organizations that they greenwash, and most importantly they social wash. When talking about diversity and inclusion, I know we're going back to the social, but that's one of the biggest things when we talk about sustainability. They're saying that they're doing a lot of stuff in terms of diversity and inclusion, in terms of women in roles, African Americans in roles, but it's just social washing. Just like people do greenwashing to say all the great things they're doing for the environment, there's a big problem of people saying they're doing all these great things for their workforce, and they're really not. They're doing it to check the box, or for publicity, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because there has been there's some scandals back in the 90s in the NCAA. And the NCAA had a big push for diversity within major universities, and they found that there was like big time like reverse discrimination going on, where these universities that were involved with this program were taking on diverse students over and overpopulating their school with diverse students, and not giving non-diverse students the same opportunities. And it's interesting you mentioned checking the box, right? I think so many companies check boxes, when they're going for funding, when they're looking to grow and expand, when they're looking to solve a problem. I've been in the consulting space and been brought in to solve issues, and literally the whole project was to check a box because it was on somebody important's radar. But they never, you come back 3 months later and they never actually did anything with the results of the project. It just kind of sat there, and they said, "Yep, we did that this year." And so I think I think that's an important call out, that you have to be intentional about how you approach it, because if you're just approaching it to check a box, it's very transparent.
Absolutely.
A lot more transparent than people think.
Yeah, I had a very, 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 very good call a couple months ago where it was an individual I was trying to interview for a sustainability project in the fashion industry, and I'm partnering with this fashion school in the United Kingdom, and she says she says she's from South America. South America. I forgot exactly what country. She's like, I love our conversation. She's like, I love the idea, but before I agree to anything, she's like, give me that company's website. I was like, huh? She's like, give me that company's website. She's like, I want to see if they have people of color leading that organization. I want to see if they have people of color on their board. I said, I'll tell you. She's like, I'll tell you right before I even go there. If they don't, this conversation's over. I said, that is brilliant.
Yeah.
And going back to what you said, now after speaking to her, when people ask me to come on and speak in kind of conferences, that's what I do. It's like, am I the check the box person? Am I the check the box? Think about it.
Yeah.
I talk about stuff. I'm transparent, right? And that's what I think. Am I check the box? Am I that check the box guy?
For sure. And you have to be real about that. The consulting space is filled with a lot of companies that are just focused on checking a box, and that's, in my mind, that's not sustainable behavior. We're just going to continue doing whatever we're going to do. But somebody important enough thought this was important, so here we go.
Yeah, and the thing is, if they get popped for something, now I'm associated with it, right?
Yep.
So that's why, and as I said, after that discussion, I always look at that. Always look at that.
Well, very cool, man. I love where we went with this, because it goes so much deeper than just how we grow our business to be successful. It's how we maintain our business, and I think that's so important to consider. That you have to be people first versus profits first.
Yes, the profits will come, the money will come.
So on that, I want to wrap it up with some final thoughts. So I always like to wrap up my shows with what's one thing from our conversation today that business owners can walk away with and put into action in their business.
Start somewhere in terms of sustainability. Yeah, there's so many. Go on. Like I said, go on Google, type in UN SDGs. There's so many areas in which you can touch, and so many of them do not cost money. It costs resources and time. So start somewhere. And when in the manufacturing industry, I ask people, I say, you've heard of lean, right? Oh yeah, we implement lean. That's your first step in sustainability. You're reducing waste. You're saving money. Now amplify that. Now go outside of your four walls and tell your customers about how you're saving money being lean and reducing waste. Tell your suppliers how you're saving money and being lean to reduce waste. So I would say to start somewhere. Start somewhere from your inventory perspective. Start somewhere from a societal perspective. Start somewhere from a philanthropic perspective. And philanthropy doesn't equate to money. It equates to knowledge. Go out in the community and educate people on business, on accounting, on human resources. That's giving back. Start somewhere.
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Well, we really appreciate you coming on the show today and talking about this super, super important stuff, especially as your business grows from 1 to 5 people up to 50, 60, 70 people. Where can people find you if they want to find out more?
I would say the easiest place to find me is on LinkedIn. You can also send me an email at jlg.justin.lee.goldston 566 @ Penn State University.edu.
Fantastic. We'll make sure we get that in the show notes as well for people. Again, thank you so much for being on the show. We will be back next Tuesday around the same time, same places. And if you're catching the replay, you can catch all of our replays every Thursday. They drop sometime midday on YouTube and all the major podcast networks. Again, thank you so much for your time and have a wonderful, wonderful week.
Thank you.
Well, that wraps up yet another episode of the Winning Tactics Podcast. You can find Adam on both the LinkedIn and Facebook platforms. And to support the show and ensure the success of the podcast, would you kindly consider visiting Patreon.com/Adam Sinkus? We greatly appreciate it. And until next time, from the Winning Tactics Podcast, remember, culture is how your team behaves when no one is looking. Take good care, and thanks for listening.